Welcome back, everyone, to The Deep Dive. We like to take a look at some of the big issues shaping the world today, and today is no different. We're diving into something pretty significant this time, a real global shift, and it has some pretty big implications for India in particular, especially for those of you out there really following current events for those UPSC exams.
Absolutely.
We're talking about Africa's growing interest in nuclear energy,
Yeah,
and you're tuning in because you want to, get a handle on these crucial developments in global energy and international relations, and of course, how it all ties back to India.
for sure. And I think this is a really dynamic situation unfolding right now.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of movement in this sector.
Absolutely. So think of this as a kind of targeted briefing to sharpen your understanding of this, really important topic. Our source for this deep dive is The Hindu.
Great source.
Excellent reporting as always. And what's immediately striking to me is the momentum.
Yeah.
We're seeing it's not just about diversifying energy sources. It's deeper than that, right?
Yeah, it really is. Nuclear power is being seen by a lot of African nations as a key to unlocking their development potential.
Absolutely. It's a huge opportunity for them. And for years,
Yeah.
South Africa's Coburg plant stood alone, right?
Right,
That
yeah.
was the continent's only operational nuclear facility. It was a legacy project from a French consortium, but now
Yeah.
there's a palpable shift.
Yeah.
We're seeing serious consideration,
Yeah.
planning underway in countries like Ghana,
Mm.
Nigeria, Sudan, Rwanda, Kenya, Zambia. This isn't just a passing interest.
No, it seems like a very serious commitment.
Yeah, and the scale is ambitious.
Oh, absolutely. Experts are anticipating a potential surge to around 15,000 megawatts of nuclear energy capacity in Africa by 2035. Wow. That translates to a $105 billion investment opportunity.
That's huge. So let's unpack this a bit, why this surge in interest now. I mean, it's a huge undertaking
Right.
with significant financial and technical hurdles.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's a really crucial point about, the dual drivers here. The economic incentives are substantial.
Yeah.
A $105 billion market that's going to spur significant growth, create a ton of opportunities, but maybe even more fundamental is the need to address these chronic electricity shortages across much of Africa.
Right.
Reliable and stable power, the bedrock of, economic and social development, and nuclear energy offers a pretty compelling low-carbon alternative.
Yeah. So while the green aspect is there,
Right.
the immediate focus is really on powering economies and ensuring that energy
Yeah,
security.
making sure the lights stay on.
Exactly. Now, this kind of ambition and this kind of money is bound to attract global attention.
Oh, for sure.
It's not just African nations looking inward at this point, is it?
Not at all. This burgeoning nuclear interest has ignited this new competition for influence in Africa.
It's interesting.
And traditionally, France has been a significant player in the nuclear sector, particularly in French-speaking African countries.
Yeah. But it sounds like their dominance is being challenged. We're seeing these new global powers stepping into the arena.
Exactly. And the United States, for example, has been making efforts to strengthen its presence through initiatives like the U.S.-Africa Nuclear Energy Summit. However, the long-term direction of U.S. policy in this area can be somewhat unpredictable due to domestic political shifts. So it introduces an element of uncertainty for potential African partners.
Yeah, and then there's Russia, which seems to have been actively forging agreements as well.
Yeah, Russia, through its state atomic energy corporation, Rosatom, has established nuclear cooperation agreements with several countries, including Egypt, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Burundi. And the El Dabaa project in Egypt, where Rosatom is actually constructing reactors, represents the most concrete progress so far.
So they're really making moves.
They are.
It sounds like.
They are.
But the pace of advancement has been, I guess, a little bit more deliberate, a little bit slower.
Yeah, it has been somewhat deliberate for sure.
Okay, and here's where things get particularly interesting, especially when we look at what the Hindu is reporting.
Okay.
China's increasing prominence in this sector.
Right.
And it sounds like they've been playing a very strategic long game.
Yeah, what stands out here is China's comprehensive and multifaceted approach. And this isn't a recent development as far back as 2012. The China Atomic Energy Authority, in collaboration with the IAEA, launched a scholarship program specifically for African and South Asian students in nuclear science and technology.
That's interesting.
So it's not just about selling reactors, it's about investing in human capital and building lasting relationships from the ground up.
So building that trust and that understanding early on.
Exactly. And crucially, China has a proven track record operating a substantial fleet of nuclear reactors domestically showcasing their expertise and reliability.
Yeah, that scholarship program seems like a particularly strategic move. What makes that stand out compared to other nations' engagement?
I think it's the proactive and long-term nature of it. They're really thinking ahead and investing in the future of the industry in Africa.
So, who are the key Chinese entities actually spearheading these nuclear ventures in Africa?
The two dominant state-owned players are the China General Nuclear Power Group, CGN, and the China National Nuclear Corporation, CNNC. And their growing influence was really clearly evident at the recent Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAC, in 2024.
So, tell us more about the specifics of those FOCAC deals. Nigeria and Uganda were highlighted in the source material.
Right. Nigeria signed a really significant memorandum of understanding with China at FOCAC. It covered the entire spectrum of nuclear power plant development, from the initial design and construction phases right through to long-term maintenance.
Wow, so a really comprehensive partnership.
It is.
And Uganda, their ambitions seem quite substantial, if I recall.
Indeed, Uganda's memorandum of understanding with China outlines plans for a 2-gigawatt nuclear power plant with a target of having the first unit operational by 2031. So that's a major commitment and underscores the strength of their collaboration with China.
So we're seeing different approaches tailored to individual national circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what about Russia's agreements in West Africa? The article mentioned Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali.
Right. Those agreements are noteworthy, particularly in the context of the current geopolitical landscape and the stated pro-Russian sentiments of the governments in those nations. However, a critical factor to consider here is Russia's current economic situation. The sanctions and economic pressures resulting from the ongoing conflict in Ukraine could limit their capacity to finance and execute these large-scale nuclear projects in Africa.
So while the political will might be there, the practical and financial capabilities could be a major constraint.
Exactly, and that could potentially create further opportunities for China to step in.
Okay, let's shift our focus now to why this unfolding scenario in Africa should be of particular interest to our listeners, especially those preparing for the UPSC exams. How does Africa's growing nuclear ambitions intersect with India's strategic interests, particularly in the realm of energy security?
If we connect this to the broader picture of India's own significant energy ambitions, especially its goals for expanding nuclear power generation in the coming decades, the implications become quite clear. Ensuring a reliable and consistent supply of uranium fuel is of paramount importance for India.
And India has been actively pursuing uranium supply agreements with various African nations, hasn't it? The Hindu mentioned existing agreements with Namibia and potential exploration in Niger.
Yes, India has established a civil nuclear cooperation agreement with Namibia and is actively exploring uranium mining opportunities in both Niger and Namibia. However, China's increasing dominance in Africa's nuclear sector could potentially pose challenges for India in securing access to these crucial uranium resources. If China becomes the primary nuclear partner for a significant number of African nations, it could exert considerable influence over uranium supply chains, potentially creating hurdles for India's procurement efforts.
Beyond just the raw materials like uranium, what about the infrastructure needed to support a nuclear energy program? The article touched upon the importance of robust transmission networks.
Right, that's a really critical point that sometimes gets overlooked in discussions about nuclear power plants. Generate substantial amounts of electricity, and that power needs to be efficiently transmitted across national grids to reach end users. Many African countries currently lack the well-developed and resilient transmission infrastructure necessary to handle large-scale nuclear power generation. And China, through its Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, has demonstrated its significant capacity to undertake large-scale infrastructure development projects, including the construction and upgrading of power grids. If China strategically integrates nuclear power plant development with these broader infrastructure initiatives, it further solidifies its position in Africa's clean energy market and gains considerable strategic leverage.
So it's not just about building the nuclear reactors themselves, it's about developing the entire energy ecosystem.
Yeah, the whole picture.
That supports them, and it appears China is taking a more holistic approach in this regard.
Yeah, they're thinking long-term and strategically.
So what are the overarching implications of this evolving landscape for Africa itself and for the wider global community? It sounds like a significant power dynamic is taking shape in the African energy sector.
Indeed, Africa's pursuit of nuclear energy holds the promise of greater energy security and accelerated economic development. However, the increasing dominance of a single external power, in this case China, in such a strategic sector, raises important questions about potential long-term economic dependencies and strategic vulnerabilities for African nations. It's a complex balancing act between accessing much-needed clean energy and navigating the intricacies of international geopolitical influence.
This has been a truly insightful deep dive into a really important and evolving global trend, especially for our listeners keen on understanding contemporary international relations and energy security. For those of you preparing for your UPSC exams, we hope this has provided a much clearer understanding of the dynamics at play in Africa's burgeoning nuclear sector, the various global powers seeking influence, and particularly China's strategic advancements in the region.
This raises a really crucial question for you to reflect upon. Given China's expanding influence in Africa's nuclear sector, coupled with its broader infrastructure development initiatives, what are the potential long-term geopolitical ramifications for the African continent and for other global powers like India, particularly in terms of access to vital resources and the formation of strategic alliances?
It's a multifaceted issue with significant long-term consequences that warrants careful consideration. And for all of you preparing for the UPSC exams, we strongly encourage you to analyze this issue from the critical perspectives of energy security, international relations, and sustainable economic development. This case study of Africa's nuclear ambitions offers invaluable insights into the complex interplay of these factors in shaping contemporary global power dynamics.
Absolutely.
A thorough understanding of these nuances is essential for a well-rounded and informed perspective on global affairs.
Couldn't agree more.
If you found this deep dive valuable and insightful, please do subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment with any questions or further thoughts you might have. We always appreciate your engagement and look forward to continuing these important discussions with you. Just a reminder that our primary source for this analysis today was The Hindu. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.